It's been green.
I think we're good to go.
I call to order the August 28th, 2023 Village of Machesney Park Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Mr. Secretary, will you please call roll?
Commissioner Heideman's a yes. Commissioner Fluger,
Yes.
Commissioner Danielewicz,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanton,
Here.
Commissioner Alms,
Here,
Commissioner Hankins.
Here. We have a quorum. We'll continue. Everyone should have received the minutes from July 31st meeting. Are there any additions or corrections? Hearing none. Do I hear I guess we can just, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign? Okay. Meeting minutes approved. Communications.
No communications. I just wanted to let everybody know one of our old planning and zoning commissioners passed away last Sunday.
Dave.
Yeah, Dave Harmon. He was on the planning and zoning commission for over 30 years total. He resigned in 2017.
May you rest in peace, Dave.
Yes.
Okay.
That's all.
Item 5. Variance from floodway conservation zoning district overlay regulations to allow construction of a home addition for property known as 9920 Shore Drive. Carrie.
When our floodway conservation overlay district was created in 2011, it seems that every property in the Shore Drive area that had any mapped floodway on the property anywhere on the lot was included in this overlay district. And in hindsight, it probably would have made more sense to have an exception in there added to the ordinance to allow new construction on the lot if that new construction is entirely out of the floodplain. That is what our applicant would like to do. He would like to build onto the front of his home to extend his attached garage forward towards the street. Everything behind the home is floodway, but that area that he wants to build in is entirely out of the floodplain. However, because the floodway overlay regulations clearly say that only structures constructed prior to when the ordinance was created in 2011 can stay as they are. We shouldn't issue any new permits for any additions or new construction. So the applicant has to apply for this variance from those floodway overlay regulations. And staff has determined that this request clearly meets all the findings. And we're recommending approval of the variance with the condition that it only allows this proposed addition that is completely out of the floodplain. I want to add this doesn't need any other variances and meets front setback, even though they're building on the front of the home. The home is set back pretty far as it is now. And you can see on page 13 in your packets, the floodplain map that shows where the actual floodplain delineation is compared to the front of the garage where they proposed building this addition. So, thank you.
Great. Mr. Hoff,
Yes.
did you have more to say about it, or?
No, I just.
If you're gonna follow the rules, so why don't you come on up? And unfortunately, not unfortunately, but the rules are, you gotta raise your right hand. Solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Eric Carl Hoff, 9920 Shore Drive,
Thank you.
Machesney.
Yeah, anything you want to add to Carrie's report?
Well, about the elevation difference, we have an exposed lower level. So where the garage addition is going is approximately 9 feet higher than our exposed back.
Okay.
And I'm basically, gonna do the same as my neighbor did back in the late 80s. So I'm just kind of going off of, how they added on to his house. I want to do the same thing.
Okay. Questions from commissioners? No?
Thank you.
You're talking about your neighbor to the south?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Besides, Has everyone read and agree with the findings of facts?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Heideman's a yes. Commissioner Alms,
Yes.
Commissioner Fluger,
Just full disclosure, I do know Eric just briefly as neighbors, but it will not influence the way I'm going here, just minor friend. But if anybody has a,
You can vote.
Yeah, okay.
So are you voting?
yeah, the answer is yes
Commissioner
for my vote.
Commissioner Hankins,
Yes.
Commissioner Danilevich,
Yes.
Commissioner Stanton.
Yes.
So we have a positive recommendation going forward to the September 5th,
Yeah, it's a Tuesday because of Labor Day.
5:30.
That's right.
5:30. Should plan on being there. Okay, thank you.
We have other business, but you don't need to stick around for that if you don't want to.
You can if you want, but you can't. Very stimulating.
Thank you. Item 6, discussion and comprehensive plan update, Parks and Recreation goals and objectives, and community service facilities and utility goals and objectives. Carrie?
Yeah, I drafted these taking off of what we have in our current comprehensive plan. Some of our goals and objectives have been met. Some of them really didn't apply. A lot of them in the previous plan for Parks and Recreation referred to getting land dedicated when new neighborhoods are built and things that we don't have anything in our code that actually does. Also, looking into joining the Rockford Park District, which our residents aren't interested in, that we've found out by, there was an advisory referendum, I believe, years ago, and people didn't want to pay taxes to the park district in the village. So we've kind of stopped going down that road and pursuing that. So, but some things that I brought into our goals and objectives have to do with our floodplain area and the floodplain recreation plan that we've put together and just making those improvements. So we can talk about the Parks and Recreation one first, if there's any comments or suggestions.
So on number 2, you got your Stone's Landing there.
Yeah.
Which is great. And so I drove by there and just kind of noticed all the empty lots, that in theory we would have a park or whatever.
Mhm.
So,
And we have gotten grant money to,
yeah, do we got
improve
new
that
grant money
area.
coming in for any additional homes or anything? Or
well, some of it would go towards homes, some of it would go towards actually building making a larger parking area,
Okay.
making a path through there, actual improvements in that area. Most of the home acquisition is with the FEMA flood mitigation grant money that we
Right.
get.
Mhm. So then what's kind of the general plan, since we don't really have a park district? So if that came to fruition, are we gonna need a park district eventually? Or is that like, we're just subbing that out to, are
Well,
we doing our own?
right now,
mowing?
our Public Works Department takes care of
We
maintaining
own
our
and operate
parks.
our parks.
Yeah, right
We
now
have
we
land
do,
that
right?
belongs to us, they're
Mhm.
parks, and we operate.
But we don't really need a park district or anything. I
No, I
mean,
mean, that's a
No,
separate-
we don't think
That's
so.
a separate municipal overlay.
yeah. Mhm.
And especially along the river, we're not going to be putting in anything too extensive because it's just going to get
No,
flooded, so.
Right. Mhm. No, I think it's a great goal. I just kind of curious of maintaining
Yeah, and I
it.
can't remember when there was a press release when we got some grant money specifically for that Stones Landing Park.
Yes.
And I don't know if you saw that, or I can't remember how long ago that came out.
No, I do remember that, yeah.
How many, in reference to number 6, how many existing neighborhood parks and playgrounds do we have in Machesney Park?
Oh, gosh. I want to say maybe like 5.
Okay.
I'm just trying to think of them in my head right now.
I know there of one that one of the realtor organizations went ahead and updated and stuff like that. Is there a plan? And I mean, what's
Oh,
the
the one,
maintenance?
are you talking about the one on Minns?
Minns.
Yes, yeah. Is there plans with the existing ones that we have with the continued maintenance and improvements of those already before we talk about anything new?
I think just maintenance. We don't
Okay.
have any grand plans to make any of these existing parks bigger or
Okay.
to make improvements to them.
But even maintenance wise, I mean, is there a plan and structure in place for those existing ones? I mean, you look at that particular one that went into disrepair pretty quickly after a couple of years. I look at Schoonmaker, you know, which is in pretty good
On
repair, but
Schoonmaker is a
there's,
township.
Oh, that's
Highland
township, okay.
Yeah.
all right.
I guess I'm gonna reference, I live off of Mitchell, Timberland Hollow. And so I walk my dog and I drive or I run, ride my bike. I guess I'm concerned about the maintenance of it in regards to just the upkeep. I would say that that's primary importance if we're gonna have parks, just to maintain them. There's also a walking path that has overgrowth of trees, so you can only essentially use half of the path that goes behind the neighborhoods. So
Which,
it's,
area would that
well,
be?
I think that I've spoken before, I think it's Rockford and Machesney Park. But so if you're looking, there's Porter Quarries in the back, and then it's Crooked Bend Road, but it's the park that there's a smaller park right there that
oh, that's kind of down in a hole with homes.
yes, yes. And then there's a park with the slide swings and whatnot. And I part of it is blacktopped and then part of it's like limestone ag. And I just feel that I know that the Public Works does. They empty the garbages and whatnot, but as far as consistent mowing, there's inconsistencies there, and there's weeds all over the mulch, which they did remulch it last year, which I even commended them on. It looks great, but pulling weeds and just making it look presentable for families, because I think it's a representation of the community, and when you see weeds all over the place, it's not the most appealing aesthetically to, hey, let's go play.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I can work that in as an additional
Okay.
objective, just taking care of the lawn areas.
Yeah, yeah. Just the maintenance that I would say it includes probably overgrowth, the weeds in specific playground areas. Those are the biggest issues. And then I would just consistent mowing. There's lots of dandelions, which then there's infestation of dandelions all over the place from the wind blowing. And I know that pesticides and whatnot, fertilizer, we want to be very careful with that. But there's got to be, if they continue to cut it consistently low, then you're not going to have the seedlings blow all over the place.
And we usually hire a couple of temporary summer help, public works crews people who do a lot of the mowing. I know in the past few years, it's been harder to fill those positions.
Okay.
And sometimes we're run pretty thin with what we're able to do, but we can certainly add that as a condition, or not a condition, an objective.
Oh, go ahead, Jim.
I've got a question and followed with a comment. Do we require subdivision developers to dedicate a certain percentage of land for parks?
We don't, I think the idea was
It's-
always there.
It's in the same vein of thinking as impact fees, but, and that, the comment is that sword cuts both ways.
Yeah.
You know, if
I
you,
thought that was in our subdivision, land set aside for new subdivision.
You know, that
I know they did it in Silo Ridge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They didn't do it, I think it's in there,
Well, I thought Carrie said that
honestly,
she had
I'm
removed
not
it from the
sure
goals.
that I had a residential subdivision.
We have.
As long
We
as
have had a
I've worked here,
residential
so maybe
subdivision.
that's why I don't
Since the
know.
2008 crash,
yeah,
we have not had a residential subdivision developed, but I believe there's a land set aside, which we enforced in Silo Ridge and enforced up.
Hawksview, Eagles View, but the land that they set aside is really unusable. That's the problem. That's the issue that because it's the telephone wires. It's that land, that parcel right there. That's really difficult you can't functionally use it for kids.
And, well, Bondale and the two parks up off of Mitchell, what are those?
Yeah, those.
That's different. Well, Timberland House is different, but I went from one neighborhood to the next. But I know that was one of the biggest thorns in the side when they're talking about multifamily changing in that area. Well, Slayball originally said that this was going to be a park and kids could play there. So there's lots of homes in that area, but there's really no place for them to play in the Hawksview, Eaglesview area in the Platte. When you go to Silo Ridge, Mitchell, there's definitely plenty of parks. There's a lot more green space there.
That was kind of the comment, is that sword cuts both ways. If the developer decides to set aside a small piece in that subdivision, it becomes like a neighborhood park, and it's easy to get to, but you can't come up with a substantive park with small pieces. And you end up with small maintenance problems all over the place. Rather than, I think this developer was given the option of contributing payment in kind toward a larger regional park.
So you think instead of having the choice to develop a park or the payment in lieu, it'd make more sense to have not even that like, because they're putting parks where they wouldn't be putting houses anyway, and drainage easements and calling it a park, the soccer field and a drainage easement. Do you think it might make more sense to not even give them the option, just, give us some money so that we can develop a better?
I personally think, that's a better option,
Okay,
but it does mean you get in your car and you go to the park rather than walk your kids there.
yeah.
I support the neighborhood parks. That's all I got.
And I suppose it all depends on what age your kids are, whether you
Yeah,
prefer one or the other.
maybe if the thoughts swing both ways on this one, just leave it alone as far as the objectives.
Well, I don't know if maybe it's something that, well, yeah, you could make it a park, but we know that we know it's not valuable. It's not going to be used, and it's not a good spot for a park. Then maybe we can push back and go, yeah, that's not really suitable for a park. If you don't have any plots that you're willing to actually that are usable, then maybe they could donate in or something like that.
Well, if our overall long-range plan says, we'd like a regional park here, then it makes more sense to add that to our goals and objectives, to change the ordinance if it is such that developers contribute to.
And right now, our future land use plan doesn't include any new park space except for if we were to annex the quarry up off of Swanson. And we would only annex that after it's decommissioned and then possibly turn that into park space. But there's no new neighborhood parks planned in the long range land use plan.
There wasn't. I remember we talked about that when we were looking at the whole comprehensive plan.
I mean, there's the whole riverfront area.
Yeah.
That would be a lot of park space.
I guess I just I love, continuing to link village parks and open space with multi-use trail systems. That's amazing. I think it's a great vision, great goal. Continue to maintain, update existing neighborhood parks. That's great too. I think the fact that we live in a place called Machesney Park, if we want to really emphasize that, I don't know. I like that. I think we just need to make sure that quality versus quantity, to make sure that we maintain the ones we have before continuing to expand would be helpful. But there's no development for green space in the future either, from what I've seen. Right? For parks.
That's right.
Yeah.
So all the Shore Drive floodplain can't make that a park?
No, that is the plan to.
Okay,
we have that
so
floodplain
there
recreation
is space set
plan.
aside then. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. There's a lot of space.
Yeah, it has to be maintained as open space.
Right.
But your limitation is you can't develop it with large recreational implements, because then you're building in the floodway. So it's more like walking trails, and there's
Yeah.
some
Which is okay.
smaller things you can do.
Yeah. I mean, as long as,
To piggyback on Scott, I think when we're talking about the paths and the interconnection, you have the quality out there, but making sure that we have the path so it is easier for you and your kids or your family to get to some of those places is probably a real key. Because I think about making it easier to get to Rock Cut, right? We have this great park right there that we're lucky to be close to, and just making sure that we have great access from all over in Machesney Park to get there, I think is one of those key things.
Yeah, many of the residents of that were talking about the previous months changing that over, but on Jolly Way, I don't know how many of the residents say they absolutely love being able to access Rock Cut State Park just by that Mitchell Road intersection. But I think when we're talking green space, if we can't develop parks, that's fine. But I think everybody loves walkways. They're easier to maintain. And then some of them, you have systems where every quarter of a mile, there's a different opportunity for an exercise or whatever, whether it's a pull-up bar or something modified. I think that would be a great way to integrate as well, where you can kind of meet the needs of people that want to stay active, be in the community, be able to access whether it's residential, commercial, the park systems, because there's HCC, which is basically connected to a park. That's in Loves Park, I know, but that's connected to Harlem High School, and that's connected to the path that goes to Rock Cut State Park. So what would be great is if there was a park that would basically be able to interweave throughout the river, to basically 90. That would be great.
Mm-hmm.
And then foster more potential bike paths or bike lanes as well. And then I think they just added on as well as Alpine Road. Isn't there a really nice path that they just renovated recently?
Yeah. we do.
Accessing the high school. I think I commend everybody, and I think that we need to continue to foster that because people need to get out more.
And we're doing the sidewalks on North Second Street.
Mm-hmm.
I know from Mitchell Road, we tried, my son convinced me to go to Jimmy John's one day on our bikes, and trying to get from Mitchell Road to Jimmy John's was quite the feat to try to get through there safely. So there could definitely use some more paths and transportation methods.
So would you like to put something in that is like foster cooperation of green space and multi-use trails with retail, commercial? I mean, because I've been to some commercial spots that really have a lot of land that could use a park in there. I mean, we shouldn't have to restrict it there, but just cooperation with green space, multi-use trails with residential and commercial development.
You'll see some,
Kind of open like that.
I think
but-
it's Walgreens has a sidewalk on the corner that goes nowhere because Walgreens has, it's Walgreens, this plan to always put a sidewalk around, but then it stops.
The park that I was referring
Yeah.
to that has the overgrowth of the bike path, there's a road that leads to nowhere. It's between two neighborhoods, and it just, I take my dog on that, but it goes right into a bunch of trees. So I don't know exactly what they were trying to implement, if they're going to eventually connect, but they can't connect because it goes into a backyard of another home. So,
Which road is that?
well, it's the Crooked Bend. So if you take Crooked Bend and then you split off and then you go behind the neighborhood, and then there's like a really nice path that's the overgrowth, but it leads to nowhere. So interconnecting, I think, would be good.
Regarding number 4, and I know James is pretty active in it, but is there any Cabela or anything like that in the works? Is there, you know what I mean, for Rock Cut? Because I know it's a busy, so to have that retail on that outside edge there would be nice.
Yeah, and that's, and getting a hotel out there.
Yeah.
That's,
Which I
we're
think will
always
happen.
trying to.
I think it will happen with casinos on both ends of us, so I think it's gonna be a needed
Yeah,
commodity there.
it's really the landowner across from Rock Cut that needs to get working.
Yeah, okay.
They seem to be in a big hurry for a while there. And then
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because I think the roads and everything are in there, so.
There is a dedicated parkland provision in the subdivision ordinance. I was looking
Okay.
for a while. Dedication of parkland or payment of fee criteria and formulas.
So it does already have the option.
Yeah, it's got a whole calculation.
Yeah. I've just never had to mess with it because I haven't had a single residential
We haven't had a
subdivision.
subdivision since.
13 years
since
at
the,
least.
you know,
We're still,
Since the subprime market crashed.
we're still building out all of our existing platted vacant residential lots.
Okay. Anything further on Parks and Recreation?
Would you guys like to see a revised
I
goals and
think,
objectives? to what
I
we've
think so,
discussed?
just to foster some cooperation with retail, residential, and commercial for green space, multi-use
Mhm.
trails. Pretty broad, but it does say.
Trails or trails and or
Multi-use
paths.
trails or whatever, trail paths. I think they used the wording up here, what was it?
Sounds like you ought to bring it back to after you put something
Yeah.
together.
Yeah,
So you take a second look.
So we don't have any requirement for like sidewalks in commercial areas?
Hmm.
I know we do for residentials, but I wasn't sure, so when we talk about that stretch around 173 there, the Walgreens sidewalk, because they do it, but we don't have any requirements for any of our.
No,
No?
it's not.
Isn't there there's a path system that goes from I-90, I mean, there's an idea that, because it comes through, where Mitchell Road is, and I think that's supposed to wind and continue its way all the way.
Well, and at one
down.
point,
It's
it
not
was,
sidewalks on the streets, but there's supposed to be a path that.
at one point, it was going to go under the Comment High lines
Talking about the Willow Creek Trail.
and then cut down to,
I'm not sure if I am or not.
To
I just
Roosevelt.
know there's a path that
No,
was-
you're right, yeah. Because you
Yeah,
can
well,
ride your bike all the way
Well,
to
great.
almost Harvard
It-
on that trail.
Because it's difficult to do sidewalks on commercial frontage because it's very busy and it's
Sure.
very
lots of
broken up
cars
and a lot of
going
in.
drives and a lot of cars, and it kind of doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
But if
Based
you got
on
a central
people
path that
walking
winds
around.
behind or
Yeah.
around,
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
that's what is.
Which, if you think about it, I mean, you have all the business, you don't want to be able to ride bikes along 173.
Right, absolutely not.
Separate it, but behind it potentially.
Yep.
And that's a nice transition into light industrial, isn't that what, is it light industrial back there?
mhm.
Behind all the.
Some general
I think
and
it's
some
full
light.
industrial, yeah.
Full industrial. But
I think it's on
you think
some
about,
of
you
the
think
time.
about all the employees working back there, where they could potentially just, hey, it's a walking path. They take a lunch, they take a break, they go for a walk, but then you can have
Yes.
residents.
It's the same path that goes in front of the village hall. That ultimately connects all the way up onto Rock Cut, ultimately connects all the way.
Yes,
Yeah.
goes
It's
across the
supposed to.
river.
It doesn't perfectly connect.
Yeah, I was about to say it's supposed to, because I'm like, really?
I know, I was thinking the same thing, I'm like.
Oh, you're right. And it goes all the way across the river.
And some of them
Past the
transition
forest
on the
reserve.
roads where there's the bike lane.
Yeah.
And then transition back off and goes back through Harlem High School, and back to Forest Hills Road, and then up through Zenith Cutter and Woodward.
Yeah.
I believe it goes all the way back through there.
I
Mhm.
think it's,
And ultimately back to Rock Cut.
Yeah.
I think it's IDOT that publishes it's like the old road map, if you remember those, a bike.
Yeah, I
statewide.
think our map does that also, just for our district here.
Well, I know I took the path to Harlem High School one day, and then again, we were going on grass to get to the first road there to get down in the subdivision and take a back way to kind of head up Alpine area a little bit more. So we could definitely do some more improvements. And I'm not going to tell you that my son talked me into going to Beefaroo that day either, because obviously there's a pattern of my son convincing me to do things here. So.
At least he wants to like ride his bike.
Yeah.
Not just have you drive everywhere.
All right.
Alrighty, I'll make some amendments based on this discussion, and I'll bring it back to you guys.
Okay.
Now the community services, facilities, and utilities. Again, I took what we had in the previous plan, revised some of them, added some new ones. A lot of them still applied because they there's still some room for improvement.
So on that number 7, the storm water management, because I know we've been working on that for quite a few years already. So are we due for another revision of that, or is that still just going forward with the plan that was created the last time we looked at that?
Well, this would be a new study for future growth areas.
Oh, okay.
Right now, we look at stormwater management with each separate development proposal. Every time a new business is going to be built, they have to show us their stormwater management plan, and then we have to make sure it's not going to cause runoff off of the property. And that's something our village engineer reviews. But if we're going to have, like the lake that's being improved behind Target right now, if we're, it might be worth it to look into creating some additional giant detention areas that we try to filter everything to
Gotcha.
in our future development areas before they start being developed.
That's a wind tunnel, and I've actually, through my church, we picked up and volunteered every spring. That
Yeah.
area right there is just full of, it's overgrowth from weeds, and then that catches all of the debris and garbage that you find. So I don't know, there's potential opportunities back there to improve.
Have you looked back there at the improvements that are being done right now?
No, I haven't.
It's getting all cleared out.
Okay.
You might not have any trash to pick up for a while.
I found $21. That's a sign.
Was
Go
it
ahead.
green? That's mine.
I'm with John. I thought we had done a regional study for drainage. I know,
I
For a fact,
asked our
we put some
engineer
pretty-
to review these and see if he had any suggestions, and he didn't mention. And I don't,
hasn't the engineer done a regional drainage study?
I believe he has, but
Because-
it would have been years ago.
I've seen some pretty big storm sewer go in. We ran large diameter storm sewer down to the Concordia property to the river. I know there was some storm sewer that was the size of my truck that went in front of my house. And that's much more than was necessary for, street drainage. So there must be some kind of a plan for overall regional capture of stormwater.
yeah, if there, then I trust that there is. It must have predated when I started here.
I guess I was thinking it must have been 10 years ago or something when we did all the drainage next to Coles there by 173 and 251. It's like, because I thought there was one that kind of precipitated getting all of that area redone.
Well, a lot of
because
it,
was so
and
bad.
that kind of was spurred by the flood map updates, because a lot of those industrial areas ended up in the floodplain, including pig mines and stuff, and they wanted to look at putting in bigger culverts and
Gotcha.
getting the water where it should be. And that's part of the improvements.
The project that's underway right
Yeah.
now, coming from where Hennick's going to be up north, all the way back down to Target, where unfortunately the accident occurred.
Yeah, and our engineer's really good at having the foresight to be like, nope, let's make this gigantic for the future. But maybe there is a plan we was referring to. I'm honestly not sure. I can't tell you.
I had a question about number 9 too. We're talking about recapture agreements.
Mhm.
I understand the principle, but who would the developer be recapturing from? The next developer or the village?
But usually it's on hookups. So whoever, whether it's private or whatever, if you want to hook up into that storm sewer that somebody paid $1 million to come in, there is, in addition to a hookup fee, there's a recapture fee you have to pay to the person or entity that spent $1 million to bring it to you,
But who fronts the money?
the developer. The first time,
Yeah, the first time,
the
say,
guy who wants it,
Say our overall-
whoever wants it out here and it's not out there, then he's got to, and usually there's some incentive. It might be in a TIF, and the TIF will contribute. It might, there probably might even still be a recapture when Lowe's went in and they brought storm sewer up to Lowe's through there. There was a recapture for the other properties, like Freddy's and all those properties had recapture payments they had to pay to Lowe's as all those smaller developed for bringing the sewer in there.
And the village keeps track of that?
I don't know that we specifically keep track of it. I think Lowe's was keeping track of it. I mean,
Yeah, because it's their outbuilding, I guess.
yeah, maybe we do have it. I can't remember. It's been a while since I mean, we don't participate from any additional documentation, and I don't specifically get involved, but I know there's a recapture out there. You know, I'm working on a development in another community where they have to pay $2.5 million to bring storm sewer and water and sewer out to a hopeful truck stop. But there'll definitely be a recapture there because it's got to come out a long way, and then that truck stop will create other development, and the developers will want to recapture as other buildings go online and hook up. So that,
Do we have any overbuilding going on right now, Perryville and 173? Because it looks like we're starting to clear there by the Discount Tire. Like some buildings are starting to go there, and
Nothing's been submitted to us for official review, but
stuff has been, I've been in meetings where there's a tentative layout. I know
okay.
the fire department's been contacted about flow and fire, you know, so, but it's all, nothing that would get to the point that it's been.
Right. But is that a scenario where they're starting to go in there, so they would do an overbuild to make sure that anything else that would go in there, or is that already
I
developed?
think that's already developed out that way. I know water is.
I don't see a recapture out there. I mean, they just developed the land. They'd have to put in proper roads, and roads would stub, dead end, and so that the next person who builds can connect onto it. And, you know, roads tend to stub into an open field because it's anticipated that the field will ultimately develop.
But who keeps track of that? Say, for the sake of argument, we're talking about storm sewer. And we're extending that utility out.
Well, storm sewer isn't really, I mean, it's not a utility, it's stormwater, and we keep track of it. I mean, we know where the storm sewers are. And if a new plat is developed, it will have to hook up to existing storm sewers or have proper on-site detention, depending on how massive the need is.
But, I would assume that North Park Water is keeping track of the water, and Four Rivers is keeping track of sanitary sewer. They have drainage basins and.
I mean, the biggest one that I can think of is, well, the one that comes down through Target and under and goes by Mobile and goes over past Machesney Crossing and then goes under into the Los Park Auto Parts and then goes on down the river. Years ago, you may be talking about it, where the Lutheran church is there on North 2nd Street. They went right through that with the size pipe you could drive a truck through. That captured all the water from the subdivisions to the east to bring it to the river. And then you can think about Lowe's Park did that whole drainage thing that snaked down across
Windsor?
across North 2nd Street, down by the Dairy Depot and then crosses. They actually paid for 3 ponds on Forest Hills Country Club because drainage came down from there. It would be coming down from like Lutheran High School and coming down through the cloisters, came across the golf course. The Lowe's Park actually paid to develop 3 of the ponds that are on the golf course because it was stormwater management. And then it goes on down and goes by Dairy Depot, goes under North 2nd Street and goes out to the river. So there's those bigger ones that go down, but then you can have also on-site, just on-site detention where you have detention ponds. I don't know, does anything hook up on Roosevelt there where that big pond is behind by Harlem Community Center? There's several big spots where they have dry detention and it's just groundwater filtering in. So
yeah, I don't think those are piped.
that's the lawyer talking engineering. You should be all over it. But I see this stuff come and go. Chris would be
Well,
But when I do send out a plat for review by the water, by North Park Water, by Four Rivers, that if there is a recapture in place, that'll be part of their comments. And that'll be part of the ordinance before they'll sign off on the plat. They want that money, so they are keeping track.
Do those recaptures have a time limit, or is it just as long until everything's built out?
I think it's pretty much just until everything goes on.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So on my way in there, you had a little flyer out in your little window out there that next week, you're gonna be talking to Lost Park about a border agreement.
We already have one. I mean, we had one, it just expired, we're just re-upping it.
You're re-upping it. Are you gonna change anything there, or it's supposed to be like following 173?
The line's
it said?
173.
Yeah.
We negotiated that in 2001.
Okay,
And
just tell me a little, in a nutshell, what's going on with, like, so they have that side and we have
yeah, they
this
have
side.
south, we have north.
Mhm.
And that's the bottom line. They had, I will tell you, it was very hot when we were in the process of expanding, and Lowe's Park grabbed Rock Cut State Park. And that became part of Lowe's Park, and that became a big threat to the village, because if they went north of that,
Yeah.
that would be a problem. And in 1995, 6, 7 area, we went on a huge effort and annexed in Domino. We ended at basically Forest Hills Road,
Okay.
and we annexed the farm then between Forest Hills and Mitchell,
Mhm.
and every farm all the way out to the far side of almost to Belvedere Road. And we're talking to the Belvedere Road people. But we annexed those all in one fell swoop. So they had their wall, which was Rock Cut State Park.
Yeah.
We didn't want them coming across, so we created our wall, and it was a lot of work. Steve Kuhn was the mayor then, and I'm old enough, but I was around back then, and
Yeah,
negotiated all those annexation agreements.
Well, good job.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
then we annexed them all in Domino, and yeah, that was and then 251, 173, which all four corners were already in there, but that really gave us a lot of room to expand.
Yeah.
Does Lowe's Park have 173, south of 173 on the other side of 90?
There's a Rolly Olson piece that they own. There's a piece almost to Belvedere Road that comes up, but I shouldn't say they own it, they've annexed it in. So I don't think they go much past Belvedere Road. I doubt we will look to go much past Belvedere Road. Boone County line's right there.
Right
Not that-
there, yeah.
Not that it matters. I mean, you can cross the Boone County line. It's what it is.
Those Park does.
Yeah, I think they do. I think I have another boundary agreement with maybe Caledonia.
But
and
Yeah.
Lowe's Park.
Lowe's Park does have the speedway. They do have in front of Harlem. It's weird. It's really cut
Yeah,
different there.
The map is,
Messed up.
well, when, Machesney, Lowe's Park has existed since 1920 or 1910, or I don't know, they're old. We were incorporated in 1981. And so, I mean, we incorporated all this area, but there was a jagged edge to Love's Park that we kind of bordered up against. So, I mean, that's what happens when you have a very old community, and then now we're getting older, but back, 1980, 1990, those were we were a young village back then, figuring things out.
So is it just a renewal and no changes, or are there actual changes?
If you're looking at, there's some language in it that's been left out, but that had to do with incentives that were off. In the first one, we agreed not to try to out incentivize each other to get people to go on one side or the other. It's not in this one. Well, that language, I don't believe is in this one. It probably doesn't need to be. Just so you know, we also had one with Roscoe that needs to be done. We're working on that as well.
Yeah. Rockton, Roscoe.
We have one with the city of Rockford too, on the
Yeah, where's that
west
going?
side, and it kind of goes up jagged from, the corner out there, when you cross the river, heading out Roosevelt, heading out West Lane, whatever it is, all the way out to 2.
Okay,
Um,
Latham and two,
yeah.
yeah,
But it kind of went jaggedly northwest out that way, and then Rockton had one as well. So there's some stuff in place.
is the YMCA camp and that's all in Rockford? Is that, where Elmwood Road is, or
I know
Rockford
where
ended
that is, but
Elmwood?
I don't know.
I
Yeah,
think that's unincorporated county right now,
is it?
but it would be in Rockford's extraterritorial.
Yeah,
It's interesting, when we jumped across the river and annexed Atwood Golf Course,
yeah,
that was so they could serve alcohol. Atwood's in Owen Township.
okay.
Atwood Golf Course is in Owen Township, and Owen Township is a dry township. They
Oh.
won't allow alcohol to be sold in Owen Township.
Hmm.
And so we annexed it from across the river, and then once we annexed it, now it's ours, and our rules supersede the township rules, and they could serve alcohol. We also did that through the gas stations that are out there by the sports club.
Oh, yeah,
And then there was a bar out there.
yeah,
So where Bower Bridge comes across.
yeah. Mhm.
Those were the good old days. Well, these are still the good old days. They're all good old days.
Looking for a fight to win, maybe? I don't know. You kind of bored, maybe? You want to annex something else? I don't know.
We've fallen off track. I'm ready to go, so, whatever.
I got two more questions
Okay.
and then I'll shut up. Number 10, should we include in that the requirement for a wider right of way, say 80 feet for collectors, arterials?
Yeah, I can add that because that is,
66 not enough, you need to be 80, is that kind of?
well,
I'm just
66
curious.
would be residential, but there are wider ones in place.
And
in our
that, and that
code.
may be in the code already.
Yeah,
And my other comment was number 11. If we start requiring utility easements on the roadside of properties, that's where all the utility boxes are gonna be.
well, that was our engineer's suggestion, so we don't have to.
That doesn't make it a good one.
I'd rather see them in the back, really.
Well, our ordinance encourages and pushes utility easements to the back.
Okay, and underground wires and everything.
And
But
we
there's a
just
lot
did-
of
we
stuff
just
in
did
the
a
right of
revision,
way.
And we encourage plats to develop with those utility easements off the right of. You can't always do it, okay? I mean, when you can, you can. But certainly that's in the ordinance already to encourage utility easements off the right of way and in easements in backyards and so forth.
I've seen it done in PCDs where you have virtually no backyard. You're,
You maintain it,
You
but
got-
it's.
You maintain it,
it's
yeah.
yeah.
an easement.
I do
you
on
got
mine. Yeah.
a home with a deck on it and then, maybe a barbecue grill.
Well, near,
Okay.
our
I
residential backyard requirement is at
With the-
least a 30-foot setback.
With the fiber lines coming, we just did some revisions to the right-of-way ordinance to mandate that they have to go in, they can't go in the right-of-way if there is an available off right-of-way utilities. They have to go in the utilities.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
So would you change that wording to back or
I don't think you need to change anything here.
No,
I'm
it's
just
just-
commenting that we have that.
that we have that.
We have that
Yeah.
encouragement in the ordinance already.
I don't necessarily say, hey, let's change it, but let's be aware that
Mhm.
if you leave it alone, that's where your utility pedestals are gonna end up being.
right? So if they read that, they might say, oh, the front, good. That's what I'm saying. Maybe change it to the back. Unless otherwise noted or something. However you would word it. How would you word it? What'd you word?
Well-
Just change it to back?
On Mitchell Road, there, Frontier has a big utility box right there because that's where it's like the main distribution to that whole area. I don't know, it's half hidden by a tree and a bush, and I don't know. Half the time I don't even know it's there until they're sitting there working on it.
Well, I mean,
Is
this
it
is
in
a
the yard or?
comprehensive plan. We have the rules in our ordinance that are actual to the specific subdivision development. And so this is more like 40,000
I'll
foot
keep
motion
everybody
versus
passed
a
back.
granular review.
Yeah.
So what you're talking about, I think it's a little too granular for the comprehensive plan, personally, my feeling.
You just want to be a little more consistent. Yeah, I'm with you. I'll be granular, if that means I'm rough.
Okay, I'll bring back a revised
Okay. Good job, Carrie.
section there too. Yeah, we're through all of our goals and objectives for everything that's going to be in the plan now.
Well, is it time to start again? It's-
Mowing the lawn, rows, and then you gotta do it again.
Okay, item 7, other business for the good of the commission. Nothing? Public comment? Izzy? No, you're not public. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Well, second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Meeting adjourned.
right.
Thank you.